Radio Spätkauf. Berlin News in English.
Hello, it is Saturday, October 8th, 2022. This is Radio Spätkauf, Berlin's news podcast, recording live at noisy rooms on the Gelände. I'm Dan.
I'm Izzy Choksey.
I'm Jöran, Mandik.
So, coming up today, it's been a year since Berliners demanded to take corporate housing stock back into public hands. So what's happened since and what happens next? Today, we'll get an update on Deutsche Wohnen and Eigenen campaign. And get your woolies ready, guys. Temperatures are dropping and the season for indoor heating is swiftly approaching. So what does this mean for the future of the heating district network and also the gas?
Get our what's ready?
Get your woolies ready. Your woolies, your woolly hats, your woolly mittens.
Okay, I heard
woolly
willies
socks.
and I was like, is this like a fanny pack type situation?
No.
All right.
Are you not already like buying thermal underwear? I feel like everyone is going out and buying and hoarding thermal underwear. No?
I
not
have
there
never
yet?
worn thermal underwear.
Get to the shops.
I bought one at Chibo like last year and I was like, I'm going to get into this. Seems like a practical thing, but it turns out my legs are just hot enough.
I wear them like October to March, April.
That's the standard.
Yeah,
I want to get an all-in onesie. Like the frontiersmen used to do. They used to like take it, put it on, not take it off for like 5 years. That's my plan. I'm going to put it on in October and not take it off till March.
Great. I will see you in April.
Clips at the back, clips on the bum.
Do a little check-in. Hey, how are you? How are you both doing?
I'm okay. Are you okay?
Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm kind of scared about winter. I'm not going to lie.
What do you mean scared?
Yeah, it's going to get really cold, and we're not going to be able to turn our heating on.
Wait, why can't you turn your heating on?
It's going to be really expensive.
But you can turn it on.
I mean, technically, yeah, but
you have to save up though.
keep it to a minimum.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
19
what?
temperature. That's the max. Or,
For you.
save the monies.
Yeah.
But mine only goes up to 4.
Wait.
I'm not sure what it's measuring there, Dan.
Do you have like a thermostat
Yeah.
with like numbers on it?
Yeah.
No, you live in some kind of fancy house.
Oh,
Mine
no,
has 0 and maybe it goes to 5. I don't know. I would never go to 5.
5 is
guys.
crazy, yeah.
5 is crazy.
mean, like 3 is pushing it. But how? Okay.
You don't know about the whole like energy crisis?
I know. I
or-
just don't. I mean, I believe you.
Okay.
I have a new hobby.
Yeah.
I box now. Shout out to my boxing gang who have made it here today.
What kind of boxing?
Normal boxing, no kicking, just boxing. Mike Tyson style.
All right. I'm not sure that is what people think of as normal boxing anymore, but yeah, okay.
There seems to be a voice missing though from today.
What do you mean?
Yes.
Joel.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Have you
not here,
noticed?
and he's halfway around the world right now.
So this is the first show. We're going to do a bunch of these, and this is the first one we've put together without Joel.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Already going really well.
All right. Let's hop into some short news, shall we? Do
Yeah. What's up first?
you want to do Stinger?
Oh, God.
Get this. The UN thinks that Berlin has the best digitized administrative services in the world. Berlin, that's us, the city that's notorious for a public bureaucracy that has brought many listeners to tears with the impossibly long waits, lack of availability of in-person appointments, emphasis on in-person, and demand for signed hard copies for almost everything.
But, I mean, maybe it's changed in the last month since you had to do something.
Well, the study is called United Nations e-Government Survey, and they put Berlin ahead of cities like Seoul and New York and even the fully digitized Baltic cities like Tallinn and Riga. And no one really knows why. Currently in Berlin, only 1 in 4 public administrative services can be conducted online. And even the Berlin Senate doesn't really know what to say about this ranking. They declined to comment.
I have to say, I did on the cab ride over here, and I only took a cab because I was bringing the drinks and I had a lot of equipment, guys. I signed up for my booster just like on my phone.
Oh, you're getting a booster?
Yeah.
Should I?
What should you?
I guess I will.
They're free. I don't.
I feel like the conversation that I've been having is like, when do you get your booster? You know, because it only lasts for a certain amount of time, and so you have to time it so it lasts for the whole winter season. You know, get it in November.
Can you get it done digitally though?
Like you can download it.
This is a Tron type
into
scenario.
your
When you
blood.
said fully, I have to say, when you said fully digitized cities, I was like, we're living inside computers?
yeah, maybe that was a bit of hyperbole. But there is some hope in this arena. Berlin is projected to get online apartment registration this spring. That is, of course, provided you can actually find a flat with Anmeldung possible.
Speaking of bureaucratic fuck-ups in Berlin, it is increasingly looking like Berliners will have to go back to the polls to redo the 2021 Senate election. We've spoken about the possibility of this for months, and now we have a decision in sight. On November 16th, Berlin's Constitutional Court will decide whether or not to revote. A revote will happen. The current polls suggest that the SPD and Franziska Giffey should be especially worried about losing votes, and the Greens and the CDU will go head-to-head for the win. If the election needs to be redone, does that mean the marathon needs to be rerun? A small chuckle. A small chuckle. Light laughter.
What is that? Okay, I get that it rhymes, but...
Do you remember the marathon was on the same day as the elections, causing part of this chaos?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the audience actually listens to this show.
And pays attention.
Some people
Yeah.
got it. Yeah.
So one thing's for sure, no party will be able to change their candidate. So the SPD will have to stick with much criticised Mayor Franziska Giffey. Keep your eyes peeled for new posters of old candidates going up. These posters will be limited to those candidates who can afford it, though. Small parties who spent all of their funds on the initial election won't be able to mount the same promotional effort as in 2021. Are you going to vote differently this time around?
I mean, let's hold our horses until that decision is out on November
Fair
16.
enough.
Well, if this happens, we shall have a whole block dedicated to this on our next episode, I think.
Good idea.
Radio Spät Kauf. Berlin news in English.
Here we've got a bit of fuck the police news, and this is a content warning for
I
police
feel like
brutality.
when Joel's here, the F-bomb is in the script less.
Wait, have we dropped it multiple times already?
A few times.
Okay, abolish the police news. Content warning for police brutality and racist violence here. A 64-year-old man died Thursday after being hospitalized by police. Cooper Ilungam Medad Mutombo, a black man with a diagnosed mental health disorder, panicked when seeing police arrive at his Spandau care facility and required resuscitation after police subdued him, and he died later on Thursday in hospital. And this comes after a policeman was caught on camera last month using bodily force and racist language against a Syrian man during his arrest for having ridden the S-Bahn without a ticket 3 times. So, fuck the police is still a thing.
Yeah. And one woman saying that rather loudly on the Iranianplatz yesterday was Angela Davis, who came to Berlin and spoke at Iranianplatz to remind people about international struggles for police abolition and black feminist activism.
I was there. It was so cool to see her. We've got a little update on weed here. Who likes weed?
A small whoop.
I feel like they're just pretending. They think, oh man, Yuri thinks it's cool.
Be careful next time you take a stroll down to Hasenheide or Görli to pick up some weed. Synthetic cannabis is on the rise in Berlin. And this is according to the Office of Criminal Investigation, which is reporting increasing cases of confiscated artificial weed-like substances called cannabinoids. The problem is that it can give you a very nasty high. It's like much more potent and can even lead to severe health complications all the way to death. Added to that, no one quite knows what's in it. And this is a real danger for those just wanting to chill, man. What, did you write that part?
Got a small chuckle. So legalization would potentially go a long way towards ensuring the safety of cannabis consumed in Berlin. And didn't the new German government promise to legalize weed? Well, it sure did. It sure did. And it should. So when is that going to happen? Chancellor Scholz says before the end of this current legislature. So that means before 2025. Are you laughing at legislature?
No, I'm just thinking like before that, or if there's a new election, it'll happen really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. However, as Germany would be the first country in Europe to formally legalize weed, there are some legal obstacles. According to one report, legalization would be in conflict with the EU law. The German government remains hopeful, though, that they will find a way someday.
On September 26, 2021, 1 million Berliners voted in favor of the Deutsche Wohnen and Co. Enteignen referendum to take into public ownership hundreds of thousands of flats. After the election, Mayor Giffey said she and her government would need time to create a special expert committee to consider the concept and give their advice within a year, before moving to create the laws necessary for communalization. Well, it's been just over a year now, and still no big move forward has made the headlines. Which begs the question, what is going on and where do we stand with getting the public housing the city voted for? Here to give us an update on what the expert committee has been doing is friend of the show and host of the DW Enteignen podcast von Menschen und Mieten, Wouter Bernhard. Welcome, Wouter.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Wouter. Thanks for coming back on the show. We'd love to have you.
Very happy to be here.
So tell us, members of the referendum were part of this special expert committee. So what have they been able to do? What happened in the last year? Where do we stand? Give us a brief update.
Yeah, so on the 26th of September, 1 million Berliners voted for the expropriation, a fact that to me still is insane and ridiculous and crazy. Then we got this crazy coalition phase in which the Green, the Left, and the SPD of Franziska Giffey, our current mayor, wanted to figure out how to deal with this referendum, and they came up with this expert committee. Now, we're not a big fan of this committee. We were not from the very beginning, because we see in this committee a tactic to delay what is the inevitable, namely the expropriation of about 240,000 houses in Berlin. Now, just to correct you on one thing, we were part of these or the pushing and the lobbying within the coalition negotiations, and we were able to name 3 of the experts that go in there, but we ourselves are not part of this committee. I mean, we were able to appoint 3 people,
Oh, right. Okay.
3 people that we saw as good people that have good experience and that could put something against this sort of conservative bloc that the SPD has put in there. But
That's 3 out of how many people in the commission?
there's 12 in there, and then there is also a chairperson. So there's 13 people that actually have a say in this, and 3 of them we were able to appoint.
And so far nothing happened, right?
So a lot has happened, but we actually don't know exactly what has happened, because one of the biggest injustices of this whole committee is that there's hardly any transparency. There's hardly any idea what's going on inside of these inside of the committee. They're supposed to be publishing these records of what they're doing, what they're talking about. Even the press can't get any information on this, so it's a big, it's a big outcry that we can't even figure out what they're talking about exactly. And they're already like half a year in, half a year of their year, and we still don't know exactly what's up.
I remember back like maybe a couple of times before when you came, you said that there was a law that was already on the books from like 2015 or something that they would just be able to institute in order to do Enteignen.
We started the campaign in 2017, 2018, and during the time that we were campaigning, getting the signatures for the referendum, we also wrote a law that we did not intend to have out there as the law, but a law that the politicians could then use and put into effect. I mean, there's only so much that we can do as citizens of Berlin. We can put a referendum together. We can have 1 million people vote for it, which was 60% of the people that voted that day. We even wrote a law that could serve as the basis of this all. It's time for politicians to then eventually do their work and say, okay, well, this is as far you could bring it. Now we're going to make this happen. But so far they haven't yet.
So have you as an initiative, as Deutsche Wohnen Enteignen, have you sort of pivoted away from hoping that this expert committee will come through? Are you just kind of waiting for it to happen, or what are you doing?
No.
while that's going on?
One of the things that we've been doing lots of things during the committee's work, which is we have no idea what they're doing. A lot of it was around organizing within Berlin. Of course, what we wanted to be doing is have an initiative that can also run way after the whole Wahlkampf, the whole election season, and that means you have to go into neighborhoods. You have to continue talking to people. You have to continue putting pressure on the street. And we did that. We were at almost every event that Franziska Giffey and Andreas Geisel, her senator for city development, were at. We were there with our posters, with making noise. I don't know if you've seen, we've been making quite a lot of noise the last week or two because Andreas Geisel, the senator, who is responsible for this whole election fuck up, amongst other things, to drop an F-bomb in there. This guy is now under some serious pressure of actually having to clear his post because it's not the only thing that he messed up. He delayed the referendum in the first place to even have the referendum. And he's also now the one responsible for this whole committee situation. So there is continuous pressure on this senator, and it might actually look like he has to clear his post within the next few months.
I saw the best line from him saying why he couldn't resign, and he was just like, I'm just really busy. I'm really busy right now. I just can't resign.
Resigning is at least one form I have to fill out, and I cannot.
Maybe he can do it online now? Is that...
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, we talked a little bit about these new elections coming up or potential elections coming up. We'll know for sure on the 16th of November. We definitely see it as a big chance to oust our horrible mayor, Franziska Giffey, together with her lackey, the Andreas Geisel, and see it as a new opportunity to get some politicians that actually do know what democracy should look like.
Hey, if the election has to be rerun, on the same day, that's the same day that we voted for the referendum. Does the referendum have to be rerun as well?
No. We get to keep our 60%. We get to keep our million voters. It's a bit complicated, but there's two main reasons for it. One, elections and Volksentscheid or referendums are two separate laws. And the big law is now the election cycle. And the other reason is because there were, I think, about 35 complaints against the elections, mostly about the opposition parties, the AfD, the FDP, and the CDU. But they were all based upon the elections themselves. Nobody voted, nobody put a complaint against a referendum. We're good there.
So if you could sort of say, without presuming that anyone's going to take this as advice for their vote in the future. But if there were politicians who you would vote for instance, who know the meaning of democracy, as you say, who would they be? Which party?
What we're now going to have to figure out is what politicians have been with us for the entire way, what politicians have stayed with us in the beginning from the election all the way through the expert committee. And that's not just one party. You just have to be honest there. Even within the SPD, I mean, to show how unpopular Franziska Giffey was 6 months ago, her own party put her on to a vote on her party day or Parteitag and basically said, we can't deal with this referendum the way that you've been doing. If in the remotest sense this committee is going to have a positive vote, you're going to have to put it into law. And about 75% of her own party voted in favor for this thing. So it shows you that in all parties there is support for this idea for the expropriation of houses. And we're going to have to support all those candidates that are willing to put their voices out there.
I'm really looking forward to seeing those new posters of the old candidates coming up on the lampposts and then comparing how they changed their facial expressions.
You think they're going to do a new photo shoot?
I think Franziska Giffey is just going to go for a full rebrand.
Yeah.
She's going to have a different outfit, different facial expression.
Yeah,
Surely
I can see that.
Slogan.
It's like when New Kids on the Block became NKOTB. She'll just be like, Franziska G is back,
She's
it's
desperate.
a new look.
She's going to try anything now.
Maybe like an over-the-shoulder photo, I don't know.
Or like stroking a cat rather than like nuzzling a dog as last time.
If an indictment can be ignored or worked around or put into committee, then what happens? Or is there anything we can do? Do we have to make a new indictment that says if you don't do the other one, now you're in trouble? Or what do we do? Other than I don't know, vote for new people, they're also not going to do it.
The biggest chance we have right now at this moment is Well, it is the uproar that people are feeling right now, or the crisis that people are genuinely feeling, which is the cause of this horrific system that we're living in. We're feeling it in the housing market. We're feeling it in the energy market. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. And I think the biggest course of action for us right now is take to the streets to show that we're not longer taking this crazy system, and vote those politicians into power that we feel have our backs. And I think that's a huge chance. We have it right now, and we need to fight for that.
When you say take it to the streets, you mean arson, or like what does that look like?
Well, one of the things that you could do on the 12th of November, there's going to be a huge demonstration. It's called the Umverteilen Demo, the redistribution demonstration. It's a big collaboration between lots of different organizations. And I'd happily encourage everybody to go out there on the 12th of November.
I'll put that in my calendar. Since you started talking about enteignen, some more people have started talking about it. And actually, we have another guest today who will talk about something similar. But you have co-organized a festival, right? That's coming up. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, lots of people have started to talk about enteignen or vergesellschaften, the socialization of things. Hamburg has just started their Enteignungscampaign. We've got North Rhine-Westphalen who have started the energy socialization. We've got the Berliner Mieteverein who 3 weeks ago said we should also look into other sectors that are basic utilities. Energy, we need to talk about water, we need to talk about, obviously things like education and healthcare. So there's lots of talk at the moment about vergesellschaftung, socialization. And this weekend there is a big conference happening called the Vergesellschaftungskonferenz. It's at the TU, the Technical University in Berlin. I think about 1,500 people are attending at the moment, which is crazy. Like, it's just so insane that this is such a big topic at the moment. And it really makes me excited that this is where the conversation is going.
So does that mean the difference between the state taking it and making a public option? Because to me, that, I mean, I can only compare like an experience in the U.S. to here. And one of the big differences is, with healthcare. It's just like, if it's a basic necessity, there's got to be someone who's not profiting off of it. And when Take at the end of the year is like, oh, sorry, we made money, and sends me like a check for $100, I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, why wouldn't my landlord, who's frankly useless, also send me $100 if he accidentally made money off of me?
Well, we've seen that it is possible to the state stepping in quickly, because a couple weeks ago the current government, the Ampel government, have just nationalized Uniper, one of the biggest energy concerns. They did it in like a week or like 2 weeks. It was crazy. They just threw billions of euros in it, and now it's owned by the state. So it's basically, you see how it's possible. What we are talking about specifically is not nationalization, where the state takes ownership. It is Vergesellschaftung, or socialization, where you first expropriate something and then you put it into ownership of the people. So they get to decide what happens to it. When prices need to rise, they get together, they discuss why that needs to happen and by how much. So there is a difference between these two things. And we are very much for putting more control into the hands of the people themselves.
And is there a reason you think that it's easier or politically more convenient to...
It's more correct.
What's that?
It's more democratic.
Why in 2 weeks it could happen with energy, but it's with housing, it seems to be unmotivated.
Yeah, this I don't know exactly. I think what the current government is clearly feeling is this pressure. The pressure is on at the moment. We do have an energy crisis, and we do feel the war in Ukraine and Russia and all these kind of things. They're affecting people's livelihoods. They're affecting people's houses, their warmth. They're scared of going into winter. So I think they feel pressure. And I think if we can get that pressure on also in other parts of different sectors, politicians will act. They will have to act at some point. You saw it with Uniper, and I think it's possible in other sectors as well.
Is part of the difference that like everyone gets their bill every month and they can watch that rise, as opposed to someone who, if you're not looking for a new apartment, if you have an old contract, then the rising of, if you own a place, rising costs are good for you if you own a place. It doesn't affect you if you're renting a place. I mean, is there a way that something like enteignen can pivot and say we want to make everyone's housing cheaper, even if you're on a lease. I mean, is that the difference? Is that when the politicians have to face everyone's vote as opposed to just the people who are like looking for a new apartment?
Yeah, I guess so. What I can say is that the idea of not knowing how much your energy bills are going to be, maybe 20% more, maybe 100%, maybe 300% more, it scares people. You know, it really scares people on a level that I think we haven't seen so much before. And although the Wohnungskrise, the living crisis, it's very real. It's more of a gradual rise, say, over the last 10 years. People definitely feel it. That people definitely cannot pay their bills. But I think it's the immediacy that has politicians acted so immediately.
Cool.
Also for housing, there's always the excuse that FDP and CDU like to throw in there. That is, just build more houses.
Right.
Right.
So again, to follow up and to learn more, where do we go?
Guys, it's such a super exciting time. You should all become part of the campaign right now as we're immediately going into this new super exciting cycle. So if you haven't been part of the DWE campaign, now's your time. dwenteignen.de. We are actually bringing out a new English newsletter in the beginning of November. So yeah, keep an eye on our website. If you want to join the campaign, join Right to the City. They're an amazing group of people, English-speaking people within our campaign. And for all the other people, just join wherever you can in your Keats team, in our work groups, or help us out with flyering here and there whenever you can.
Cool. Guys, let's hear it for Walter and for making the world a better place.
So, some transport news. The e-scooter genie littering our otherwise dog poo pasted but much loved pavements is out of the bottle and here to stay, it seems. The Administrative Court of Berlin has put a stop to a plan to more strictly regulate shared scooters and cars in the city. Among other measures, the Senate wanted to introduce a reporting hotline for incorrectly parked scooters and cars to make it mandatory for companies to repark them. They also tried to introduce a licensing procedure for all sharing vehicles, making it harder to place them on the street overnight. The shared mobility lobby has long fought against this and taken legal action, and recently they got their way. The Administrative Court in Berlin said that the state of Berlin has no right to regulate shared mobility vehicles, despite arguments by disability advocates that say scooters especially are dangerous obstacles when parked on sidewalks.
Yeah, I think it
How
could have
can-
done with a bit of regulation.
That's insane. No, there are regulations about where things can be placed on sidewalks.
This is true. That exists already.
Like
doesn't it?
that's like clearly city law. Now, why that's unenforceable is, I guess, is it just? I mean, I get that it would be hard, but also, if the scooter's in the wrong place, you just pick it up, throw it in a truck, and impound it. Like it's not that complicated. I mean, we already have rules for cars and for tables.
It's money.
What's
that sounds very expensive. And companies obviously lobby against it.
Yeah, but it pays for itself. This is just, it's under you all you have to do is tell anyone with a truck that they can get a license to impound scooters, and then they pay $40 to get your scooter back.
Could pay for itself.
The city of San Diego already did that.
Oh.
That was on a previous episode.
Cars might be having a comeback in Mitte. A group of business owners called Rescue the Friedrichstraße wants to put an end to the trial that turned the street into a pedestrian zone and cycle path in 2020. And it claims that the street has become emptier, which according to them also shows in their revenue numbers. Apparently some stores had to have their supplies brought to them from other streets. Multiple businesses have gone bankrupt and, according to some owners, pedestrians feared crossing that busy cycle lane.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
That's like that is a bike expressway. Yeah, don't like. Yeah, that's not safe.
Even Transport Senator Bettina Jarasch from the Greens admits that the planning of the street needs to be improved, but she suggests turning Friedrichstraße pedestrian only, with bicycle traffic being moved to the parallel Charlottenstraße. But Rescue the Friedrichstraße is against that as well. Of course, they want a concept that brings back all motorized traffic and allows for easy delivery and stops traffic jam. I love that this is 2020 and they're like, our business has gone bankrupt or we have less revenue. There was a pandemic, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
Yeah, I do think though there is like, as much as I do love what they did there, and I think it is like I have enjoyed biking, walking,
just not
being
walking
all around
across
it.
the bike lane.
Yeah, no, like I do think there's something to be said for, rather than converting spaces which are heavily trafficked by cars into bike and pedestrian areas, is looking at places that are less heavily trafficked and turning them into that. When you look at the model in other cities of like pedestrian areas, it's usually like they were established as that. And so I do think that like there is something, as much as I love it, to learn from this experiment, which is that if you take an unused space and turn it into something wonderful and beautiful, that might then expand into other things. Like if they put it a few streets over where no one has ever been, that it could then maybe someday you would take that space over. And I only mention this because like this is what happened in like a crummy part of the town I grew up in, is they took a street that was just like no one used any of the property, and they made that into a pedestrian area, and like an empty diner car is now like every time I FaceTime my mom or my best friend Jonah, they're sitting there, and it was a street we literally had only gone down to like put stickers up for our punk bands in high school.
Start with low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it does feel like there's not an obvious place in the city where we would depedestrianize it, because usually in cities you have an old town and then the new town that grows around it, and so the old town obviously becomes this place where you would decar. Sorry, did I say depedestrianize?
Yeah.
That sounds horrific.
Decar is a great word.
Decar.
Decar is a good word.
Decar. The city centre. But there are other initiatives happening elsewhere. So Grevestraße and also Bergmannkiez as well. Bergmannkiez, they've just filled up so much of the road that it's very unusable for cars, but they can still do it very, very slowly.
Yeah, if you've got the nerve.
Yeah, if you've got the nerve and you want to go over like a speed bump every 5 meters, then be my guest. But yeah, I think, punishing them is the way forward to decar, rather than banning it completely, because then the businesses go...
Nah, that business argument is not a real argument. I don't believe those business owners.
Strong.
A quick thank you to all listeners. There are more of you each month, which is wonderful to watch happen, and we love getting the notes and feedback. And those of you that also take the time to give us financial support, an extra thank you. If you go through the website, you can join our steady and give us a monthly donation. You can also do a one-time donation. You can come to a show and hand me $20. Those are all options, and it does help keep the show going. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for supporting us.
Now, our next guest is here to talk about the possibility of Berlin taking back control of its district heating and gas supply. Berlin's district heating network is currently owned almost entirely by Vattenfall, the Swedish utility company. However, the company is trying desperately to phase out its fossil fuel operations, and in doing so, it's selling fossil fuel-based assets. It has promised the sale of the Berlin district heating network. Environmental organizations and some local politicians are spying an opportunity to take the system back into the hands of Berliners and help to ensure that the city can transition to renewables-based heating by 2035. It is currently almost entirely supplied by gas. So today, representative of the initiative BürgerBegehren Klimaschutz is board member Michael Effler. Michael Effler. So welcome, hello. Michael.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks very much for coming. Can you tell us a little bit about what, firstly, district heating is? Because some people might not know what it is. And also why it would make a difference to bring it back into Berlin's hands.
Yeah, sure. Let me first go back to the 1990s. Because in the 1990s...
we gotta fade in like a little music.
Rage Against the
Machine. It
was
another time.
Take the power back. In the 1990s, in Berlin, everything was privatized in the energy sector. So the gas company, Gazak, the BEWAG, the electricity company, and also the heat company was part of the BEWAG. Now, 20 or 30 years later, we have our electricity grid back into public hands last year, but still the public or district heating system is in the hands of Vattenfall. So district heating means essentially hot water running through pipelines going into your houses. So 1/3 of all houses are supplied by district heating. And as you already said, it's to 90% supplied by coal. So we have still 2 coal power plants in Berlin and gas, natural gas. And we think it's a big chance, a big opportunity, a historic opportunity for Berlin to take the district heating system back into public control, just as we did with the electricity grid, because then we have the possibility to really put the heating system back on track on reaching the climate protection goals, because we need to be climate neutral by at least 2035 in our point of view. And that's not what Vattenfall is doing. They are really doing one thing. They are phasing out coal power plants and replacing it with natural gas power plants. And I hope you all know that gas, not natural gas, is not the solution for the climate crisis. The opposite.
Let me ask a technical question. This hot water that you said comes from coal. How does that work? Is that like a side product of coal being burned for electricity, or how does it work exactly?
It's combined. It's in German. It's called Kraft-Wärme-Kopplung. So it's a combined production of electricity and heat. So a lot of our electricity and heat comes from these 11 power plants in Berlin. Yeah. And it's the biggest district heating system in Europe. So it's a big, really big thing, a big company. 1,600 people are working there, and it will cost, I fear, billions of euro.
And so potentially we want to turn it into a renewable system by 2035. I mean, that's really an aim of the national government as well, right? 2035. I mean, 2030, we're going to have 80% renewables in the power sector. And then, there is some idea to have a gas phase out by 2040. So that means that we're going to have to start heating without gas or burning stuff. How does that work?
Yeah. Good question. we did a study on that. Not on our own. We went to a scientific institute. It's the Fraunhofer Institute. Maybe someone have heard of them. And they did a study for us. And they said, yes, it's definitely technically and economically possible to phase out coal and gas by at the latest 2035, and it works by solar heating, by geothermal heating, so the heat that comes from the bottom of the earth to the top, by some forms of biomass, good forms of biomass, because biomass is also a little bit a skeptical thing, and also some green hydrogen. We need some hydrogen. Also river, we can take the Spree, the water from the Spree, because in the summer there is heat in it, and you can take some of that and to take energy out of it and put it in the heating system.
The Spree is a big battery.
Yeah, the Spree is something of a big battery. You can also do just power to heat, so it means turning electricity into heat. There are several options, and nearly none of them are really now in place in the Vattenfall system. They are working on some things, so it's not everything bad what they are doing, but definitely they try to do what is the best in economic terms for them, and that is getting rid of coal, okay, but taking gas, because gas is subsidized by the German national government.
So why does it make sense for you to try to buy back this Fernwärme, which isn't very sustainable, right? Yeah. Wouldn't we just, why do you want to spend money on that? Spend money on thermal energy, solar heating, those things you just said.
Because the district heat system is first a network, so this network of pipelines, Röhren, and the power plant. It's a combined system, and if you want to do something of solar, thermal or geothermal, you need the net and you need access to the net. So it's good to have both of that. And Vattenfall will sell both, so the net and the power plant. And it's a big opportunity. But also, let me take just one word on it, not only for economic or for ecological reasons, but also for social reasons, because Vattenfall has a lot of criticism because the prices are much higher than in other cities, and the prices are really intransparent. So it's not really clear why do you pay and why do you pay how much. And that is also a chance, like in the DWE campaign, when it's back under public control, at least that you have more transparency in prices. But of course, we want to lower the prices, especially now in the energy crisis.
So some of the bidders out there to buy Vattenfall district heating are like E.ON, is that right? But other big utilities, which means, if it goes into the hands of big utilities, surely we're going to have to then pay them loads of money and lost profits in order to transition. So it would be actually more cost effective to just buy the system now and then invest in transition ourselves. Is that kind of the argument as well?
That's kind of the argument, and there's also one danger I want to really talk about. Vattenfall has said, okay, maybe we will sell it, but they have not said we will sell it to the city of Berlin. They just said, okay, if someone is interested, just let me know. So there's a big fear that E.ON or RWE or some other gangster companies fuck up. I have to learn that I have to say the fuck word at least one time. At least one time in this podcast. So I fulfilled my task, and maybe RWE or E.ON or some
everything
other.
else was irrelevant. Like you said. No, as long as you did that.
Sorry, I'm too old for.
No, we're gonna cut your interview.
But anyway,
it's just gonna the interview. We're gonna edit everything before and after that. So like, welcome our next guest. Fuck yeah! Thanks for where do we find your what's your Twitter?
Okay,
handle?
Let me do it seriously again.
Okay.
So we have a fear that RWE or E.ON or some other big energy company, capitalist company comes and buys it, and then we of course have no influence on what is doing, what they will do with the public heating systems. And we will definitely first ensure with pressure on Vattenfall, hey, you stayed here for 20, 30 years, you made a lot of profits, now please sell it to the land of Berlin. Then we will tell the land of Berlin, the city of Berlin, this is not the classical thing of nationalizing. I absolutely agree with what my colleague said. We will also do it in a transparent way. We will have public control on it. We will have co-decision rights for the people on pricing, on investments, and on all that things. It's not easy to do it, but that's what we aim for. And on the question of money, don't forget your question, and we said in our petition, it's a little bit difficult. Of course, we cannot decide on the price that the city of Berlin will pay, but we will say the city of Berlin should not pay too much because there's a lot of investment to be done because we need to phase out coal and natural gas, and this is a hard task.
But why not just pay a lot? I mean, isn't like at some point no price too high to like take this system and make it green by whatever means necessary? Like, I mean to make that the end of that quote there, but like, I mean, isn't it more important that we do take it than we take it for a fair price?
Yes, the pricing is important, but it's not absolutely important because it will not be financed out of the budget of the city of Berlin. It will be financed outside of the budget. So the city of Berlin will make a Sondervermögen, a special budget entity or something like that, take some debt on the debt market, and then buy the company, and then of course pay the money back. It's worked a little bit different than the expropriation that DWE is aiming for because they will do it by law, but they also have to pay for it. We will not expropriate it because it's not necessary now, right? Because they have the intention to sell it. If not, then we will see. Why not expropriate then in a few years or so? But I will hope that it's not necessary now.
Okay, I love the idea. I'm on board. But how do we get this going? What does the Senate say to all this? Do we need to do a petition? Are you collecting signatures already?
Can I tell you a secret?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I was a member of the parliament in Berlin up to November last year.
Does anyone else know?
Don't Google me.
Talk on the secret. I was responsible for the coalition negotiations on the left side, on the left party side, for energy and climate policy. And in the coalition agreement, there is a sentence, something like, we will try to take the heating system back from Vattenfall. It's in, but it was not totally unanimous in the negotiations. Some parties need a little bit more of argumentation and reasoning, but in the end it's in, so I hope that they will still stick to it. And but of course, that I have learned, I'm coming from the NGO side, so I was only 5 years in the parliament. I know you can write everything in a coalition agreement, but it could also be dumped very easily and very shortly if you don't have the public pressure and the NGO pressure and the civil society pressure. And that's what we aim for. We will definitely put pressure on, and hopefully they stick to the agreement.
Does that mean mounting a referendum?
This will be only the final option, because I definitely know what it means to do a referendum. I've done a lot of them, or some of them. I was one of the campaigners for the Berliner Energietisch. That was the campaign that worked to put the electricity grid back under public hands, 2013. And it's very, very much work. I'm absolutely sure you know what I'm talking about. And if we don't need it, then we don't do it. But if we have to, we will definitely go for it.
We've still got Wouter sitting up here with us for everyone at home. Wouter Bernhard, a previous interview guest. I want to ask you as well, because when I talked to you before the show, you said that Deutsche Wohnen Enteignen was also talking about communalizing heating, right?
Big energy concerns for sure. We all know that the system as it works right now is incredibly unfair. It just doesn't work, and we see that in every major crisis that we get in our way. Of course, we were very much on the living front, the city and Wohnen development, but I don't think you have to look hard to see that people are in crisis. People are not going to be able to pay their bills anymore, and it's insane. It is literally insane that while people are suffering, there's these companies, whether in the energy sector, in the housing sector, or whatever, water supplies, healthcare, they're making record profits. I'm just saying they're making some profits over our crisis. They're making record profits. How is that possible? How is that a system that we consider to be worth living in? And I think this is something I think many people now feel we need to change that. We need to take back into public ownership, whether it's energy, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, education, these instrumental systems, these systems that are so important to us right now, and realize that they are not supposed to be in the hands of these big stock exchange companies. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the profit's unnecessary. It's just totally unnecessary to the system. And I mean, a fun thing about capitalism is that profit can encourage people to innovate or to make up new things or invent cool jeans. But that's got to be an alternative to the necessities. And that's a much better motivation for profit if you just can't sit back.
And it's also the will of the people. We've analyzed a lot of referendums in Germany on questions of privatization or recommunalization of public needs, and the people more or less in all cases voted in favor of taking things back under public control, be it water, be it energy, be it housing, be it education or children care or whatever. Not everything. You're absolutely true. We don't need a public company that's producing jeans or some other stuff.
The capitalists can have that. They can do all of their experimentation and I'll pick the one I like, but I want to have somewhere to live and affordable energy.
Absolutely, we don't need to have it all.
Yeah. So sometimes with these referendums or these push to republicize or to deprivatize things, there's the fraction of people who say, well, we tried that, and so having had the experience of it being public, being privatized, is that argument exist or?
Yes, but it's not that totally clear, not that totally easy. If you think that you have a private company and you take it back into the public sphere, that's not enough on its own. Definitely not enough. You really have to think about the structure, the transparency, the legal entity. Also, DWE has thought a lot about the legal entity, the legal form of a public company. There are a lot of technicalities that are really important. But I will give one example just from Berlin, the Berliner Stadtwerke. That's a public energy company that is on the market for 3 or 4 years. And they are doing mainly wind energy projects and solar energy, electricity projects. And they are responsible for 40% of all photovoltaic installations in Berlin. But they are only 4 or 5 years doing it. So it's a clear case. The private market has really not solved this problem. And it's possible to bring all these installations on the roofs in Berlin. There's still a lot of to do in this field, but it's possible when you have clear orientation and a clear structure and a clear ownership will that is saying, hey, you company, we will need your help to fulfill public intentions. That's very important, but it's not running on its own.
So if people want to support this and get Berlin's district heating back into our own hands, is there anywhere where they can go and sign something?
Yes, there is a possibility.
What would that be?
Is
it also a secret?
No, this is not a secret. They can do it in the internet on We Act. That's a petition platform of the campaigning network Campact. Campact.de, but it's only in German, but hopefully it will also work out for the people who listen to this podcast. So weact.campact.de, and then look for Fernwärme. So that's Fernwärme means district heating.
And are you looking? Do you need other support? Are you looking for volunteers? Is that something that we're also looking for, other than just a signature?
To be honest, we're really just doing this online petition on this specific project because we think the political landscape is not that bad for us, and we hope that we can succeed with that. If not, then definitely I come back here in this podcast. I'm dreaming of having another F-word conversation with you, and then hopefully I will cry for volunteers.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you one more time for our guest. Our next guest from the board of Loom, an NGO which collaborates with educational institutions, social organizations, and the political sphere and society on issues of racism, prejudice, and queer issues through an intersectional lens. Please welcome to the stage Lucy Alice Thomas. Lucy is here to tell us about a program coming up in October called the Turnt Up Music Camp. Can you tell us a little bit of what that is and what you do?
Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. And I've brought my sexy flu voice with me today. So we have a music program camp in 24th to 29th of October. And it's basically aimed at girls, trans, intersexual, non-binary young people. And the aim of it is to empower through music. And basically there's two organizations behind it. I'm on the board of Loom. And for the last 3 years, Loom has existed in Berlin and works together with educational institutions, also the Senate. And basically, the idea behind it is to create a new form of trainings for anti-racism, anti-discrimination work. I sit on the board and I'm also involved with the allyship and critical whiteness trainings. It's been like a new organization that was founded 3 years ago by Valerie Djurhus. And the conversation, I think, originally started from the perspective that there's a lot about diversity and inclusion these days. There's a lot of trainings, but it's not so many organizations that are mainly queer BIPOC people themselves, actually also giving those trainings and empowering each other. So, yeah, the idea was to create their own organization and a network. But this is like one of the projects that's come out of that original plan. Yeah.
So the music camp itself, how does that? Why is it? Why music? Why is this the direction you go to overcome these issues or address these issues?
Yeah. So one of the partners that's doing the music camp with us is ATEM e.V., so ATEM, which stands for Arts, Transformation, Empowerment, and Music, and they've done international girls' rock camps and band camps. I think in places like Iceland, but all over Europe and. Also here in Berlin, and they have a lot of experience also just using the methodology of music, cultural and other creative art forms to reach young people, reach marginalized people. And actually, when you think about it, I also did a lot of work in the past with the Berlin Music Commission, also here at Noisy Rooms, doing other band camps. And what you find is that you think that music's really accessible, and especially in a place like Berlin, right? Like anyone can access music and music lessons and all the rest of it. Actually, it's not true. And also the other social kind of psychosocial side of it is that people, though, finding their voice and finding an instrument and finding something that they can do actually really empowers them to feel more connected to mainstream, to also maybe think about their own biography in a certain way, to bring their experiences into an art form. And it's actually not as obvious as it seems. And I think another reason is also that you have youth clubs doing things, and you have then, for example, also different music schools doing things, but the intersection of really reaching people that don't have access to this is not always so clear cut.
Who is it for, and what happens at the camp?
So the camp is for anyone between the ages of 16 and 27, anyone who identifies as a girl, woman, trans, non-binary is welcome, and it can be people from any sort of walks of life, really. But this particular camp is really for anyone who can identify with the aims of the camp, which is to learn how to play music, and at the end of the week also create a show.
So do you need to come in as a musician?
No, absolutely not. It's we have band coaches who are also being trained by Loom beforehand to have like an awareness team there, and also to have this non-discriminatory approach. And no, you can just have an interest in maybe a particular sort of instrument. I mean, it's mostly guitar, bass, drums.
DJ?
A DJ. There's not going to be a DJ there, but you can like rap maybe, or write some lyrics.
It's coming up soon. Has the program proved popular?
Yeah, it's the second time round we're doing it, actually. It already happened, I think, just before the corona hit. We've got a lot of applicants, but we still have a couple of spaces left. So if people want to get involved or spread the word actually to maybe your networks, maybe if it's not for you yourselves, then to spread it within your networks. You can find it under Atem Berlin, so ATEM Berlin.com.
Is there anything else we should know about other programs that are upcoming after this one for people who want to engage in other activities or engage with Loom or talk about any of those other organizations that you're part of?
You can definitely support the work of Loom because, like I say, they, on the one hand, create these safe spaces for people. They do also free counselling every week for people. They're always looking for funding and also donations, etc. Next year, there'll be another rock camp coming up. It's like supporting the work and sharing what they do, what we do, content of like social media, and just following that conversation, which I think is a really important one in Berlin.
Is the concert Flinte? Or
Yes, it is, yeah.
All right. Then some of our, the majority of our listeners, we could still encourage them to attend. When and where is that?
That's on the Saturday, also at the Karl Place, also at Hallisches Tor. Yeah, and maybe also something else that Loom is very involved with is obviously the Oranienplatz movement that's happening right now. I think that's also, obviously, you mentioned earlier, Angela Davis, so a lot of Loom and Loom's network obviously are also participating here. It's a kind of where a lot of the activities started that led to an organization like Loom, that led to other organizations. And it's a really worthwhile cause to be supporting now up until the 9th of October. I think there's still stuff going on. And I think the International Women's Space in particular, that have organized everything and also invited Angela Davis. I think they're always looking also for financial support as well as just, joining the discourse.
Excellent. So we'll post links to Turnt Up as well as Loom and the other organizations you mentioned so that people can go and check it out, support, or become part of it. Thank you for joining us. Please, another round of applause for Lucy and Turnt Up. Is that it? Did we cover everything that's happened in the whole city?
I think that's the end of the show.
Can we do some plugs?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I would like to plug my next Social Movements tour, which will be on Saturday next week. So if you missed the last one and you were desperate to come on the Social Movements tour, then this is your opportunity. It starts at 2 p.m. on the 15th of October, and we'll be meeting at Martin Luther statue next to Alexanderplatz. The Social Movements tour is a tour of social movements of Berlin. The idea is to give people an understanding of why it is in the 19th century that Berlin was host to the largest social movements in the whole of Europe. So I cover Marx to Rosa Luxemburg. So it's very much 1848 until 1919. Don't do that much contemporary stuff, but it's a walk around Mitte. It's a lot about left-wing history, and you'll find out why those social movements existed in Berlin and also how they helped shape the city that we know and live in today.
It's so cool you're doing that. We need to find a way to pepper the podcast with this knowledge that you carry.
Ask me.
Special segment coming up. Jan, you got anything to plug?
I don't know. I feel like I've been, if you want to come see me do a show or whatever, you know where to find me at this point. I need a babysitter. Can I, like if you could just come by for 20 minutes and hold a baby while I shower. It's all, honestly, you don't have to change diapers. Just, For listeners at home, I have not had my eyes open for this entire show except to adjust levels.
Yeah, you've been extremely squinty.
Yeah, that's it. Come out for do things and, love each other. Let me take a minute to thank and give credit to everyone working with us. Sebastian, Filip, research and script writing, Anne-Marie Harrison, research, script, editing on this episode. Matilda, of course, who couldn't join us today, but you should definitely be checking out her other podcast that she does have time for. Matilda and Jöran, this really long German title, a fantastic show. And you can always check out her gigs, find her on social media. Of course, big thanks to Mr. Joel Dolroy, who is just living it up in the Southern Hemisphere, just taking in the sun, taking cute little pictures. I'm sure he won't Instagram, for like a year until all of a sudden he's just on a mountain.
He is going to come back though, guys. So don't panic. He will come back eventually.
Who will?
Joel.
You've already forgotten him. Thanks to our host, Noisy Rooms, where we'll have the next Podfest coming up in about 1 year's time. And an extra special thanks to Izzy and Yuri and our audience here at Noisy Rooms. Thank you so much. I'm Daniel Stern.
Radio Spät Kauf. Berlin News in English.